All right, y'all. Back today with the next part of the 9/11 experience. Got some newspaper relics here. From that time, yes. Right. From the Cleveland Plain Dealer. There you go. That's from the 12th. Yes. Excuse me. Here's USA Today from the 12th. Boy, that's a spectacular looking newspaper, eh? And I did actually ask Ellis when I spoke to him on the phone. I asked him if he couldn't get a hold of a copy of the New York Times from the 12th. Turns out he could not. Here's another copy of the USA Today. I just kind of grabbed whatever I could get from, the hotel. And another copy of the Cleveland Plain Dealer from the 12th. So Ellis could not find a copy of September the 12th's New York Times for me, and I'd love to have a morning edition of that. However, what I would like to have even more is the morning edition of September the 11th, 2001. I'd love to have a copy of that. Anyway, so we're on the road to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We get in there. Great. It's a humongous building. And I'll keep this as short as I can. As I said before, I went on the trip anyway, exclusively to visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for this year-long John Lennon exhibit. So we got our groups in there, and I referred again to my friend Elsie, and she said, "John, let me take your group. I know you're here for the John Lennon exhibit, so go view that thing. I mean, that's why you made this trip. I'll take your group." Okay, great. So I make my way up to the John Lennon exhibit, and my friends, I gotta say, as soon as I walked into it, immediately to my right in this plexiglass case that was kind of on the floor was John's first guitar. And I literally just fell to my knees. Just completely impulsively just fell to my knees in front of it like, oh, holy shit. And it had the famous little plaque on the headstock that John had put on years later after he gifted it to his Aunt Mimi, that said something, I'm paraphrasing, the guitar is all right, John, but you'll never make a living from it. Great. Okay, so there. And the next thing you see, I look up and there's John's Rickenbacker. There's John Lennon's fucking Rickenbacker, like, hanging up there, like, right in front of me. Black and white. Hard Day's Night. 1963, 1964. Rickenbacker. Okay. Alright, anyway. I'm not going to get too deep into John Lennon about this thing because that's not the point of this video. But there were amazing things that were happening. You had John's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band costume, that kind of green costume. You had that going on. All kinds of guitars. You had the Imagine piano, the piano that he wrote Imagine on, and all this stuff. It was just okay, wonderful. And I have to say too that everything that was exhibited had a little placard on it to tell you what it was, but right in the center of the display was this obelisk that had no identifiers whatsoever. And it had two little windows you could walk up and look into. And I knew what they were when I looked into them. I looked into the first window and it was a paper bag rolled up within a plastic bag marked New York City Police Department evidence. And it was the clothing that John was wearing when he was murdered. All right. The other little window was much smaller. It was about this big. And what it was were the glasses that John was wearing when he was killed. And they had blood stains dripping down them and everything. But you could walk right up to it and just, put your eyes right and look through John's glasses. Anyway, so I'm just, overwhelmed at this point anyway with the John Lennon display. Just in time to go downstairs for lunch. Rejoined my group, and the guy that gets up every hour in the middle of the night to turn on MTV, the former governor's son. We have our groups online and all this. He keeps walking up to the front counter to say what he wants. And I kept having to go up and pull him back. Come back here once. Come back here twice. Come back here 3 times. Come back here 7 times. And I was so overwhelmed with emotion from the John Lennon exhibit anyway, and plus all the responsibilities that I had to live up to just over the past 36 hours or whatever it was, 48 hours. I just kind of snapped. I snapped. I'm almost embarrassed and humiliated to even say it, but that fucking dude, I just couldn't. He just took me to another realm and I said again to Elsie, I said, Elsie, would you please take my group? I'll be back in 5 minutes. I walked out the front door of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, walked right over to the edge of the water. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is right on the edge of Lake Erie. And the wind was whipping, and it was cold, for early September, but I lit a cigarette, stood there and smoked this cigarette. Go back into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just in time for all my guys to be sitting down with their lunch there in the cafeteria. Thank you, Elsie. And I walked in, and I just walked all the way down to the end of the cafeteria to where nobody was, and just sat down at a table all by myself. So here you go. Here comes Kathy. John, are you going to rejoin your group? I said, no, Kathy, not right now. Well, John, is there a reason for that? Yeah, I don't feel like it. I'm stressing out, Kathy. I need a few minutes. Well, John, you need to come up and rejoin your group. Kathy? I'll be there when I feel like I can deal with it again. Again, all of us as staff were stressed and would continue to be, of course, throughout the rest of the trip. I, however, Kathy, as the director of the agency, didn't seem to not want to deal with, the intensity of the problems that were arising, so it all kind of fell onto my shoulders. And a little bit of that shit goes a long, long, long fucking way, folks, let me tell you. I wouldn't wish that kind of pressure and stress, on any of y'all. Really. But we finished up at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We went to the Cleveland Science Center, which mercifully was open for us, and had a trip to the Science Center, and we saw this, what do you call that shit? IMAX film, about something or other. I don't even remember. It was just all about getting your people in their seats and settled down, without them freaking out about some kind of shit. And then, of course, the entire way through the film, all I was doing, and all the rest of the staff were doing with their groups, was just taking people to the restroom. The entire time, you take someone to the restroom, get them seated. Oh, someone else wants to go. Okay, you take them to the restroom. Someone else wants to go. Okay, so you take them to the restroom. All right. And there was no break between the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Science Museum and the IMAX film, and then we went to have dinner at this Cafe Sausalito, No break in between any of that. It just rolled into, the next kind of thing. Got back to the hotel around 8 o'clock, I suppose, 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere in there. Just completely exhausted. And in the next video, I will tell you the one truly hilarious story that happened in this event. It was on this night, the night of Wednesday, September the 12th. God almighty. Excuse me. It was on this night, Wednesday, September the 12th. And it was after we got everybody bedded down and all that. And it involves staff and a bottle of booze. Because, obviously, alcohol was forbidden on these trips and all that. But you know what? Again, these were very, very unusual and intense, unprecedented circumstances. So in the next video, I will tell this little story about this undercover alcohol operation that the staff had on that particular night. And it is funny as shit, because it really was. It really was. So thanks for watching, folks. Anyone that doesn't want to watch this kind of thing, they don't have to. I can't expect everybody to like it, but it is what it is. Thanks for your support, my friends. Talk to you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.